So I'm convening the working group 8 at the CENTIC 442 titled BIM. Our own common boss is Øyvind Roth from Norway, who is also chairing the ISO technical committee. But so my working group is dealing with maybe competencies and competencies, because of course our own friends from UK are distinguishing between the word with or without I. Different meanings, and of course semantics are coming back again. So originally we did decide to establish the working group in 2019. We were in Prague and we did decide to start to establish some working group just before the 9th working group. And we did start and we were devising to maybe issue a standard. But quite recently we did move from the standard to a technical specification, because we have to reach the widest consensus, as wide as possible consensus. So, and the working item is titled Professions and Competencies Related to the Information Management. And so we did recently internally issued a report on the last February, edited by myself, Mark Baldwin, who is also representing Businessmart International and the Swiss CHAP and the Swiss standardization body, and Lucy Svankombeva from Czech Republic. And so our own intent is of course to try to I'm also part of the working group 9, to be honest, but of course our own intent is to strengthen our maybe links and relationship together with Edward, of course. And so we did meet since the December 2021 20 times. So we did hold 20 meetings plus 3 workshops, because of course we have to reason about the states of the art over the Europe, and we did involve also the European community and the European Commission, namely by means of Peter Stellens, and of course we did try to start to reach the consensus. It's not so easy, of course, but I think that we will succeed on the near or on the next future. So the new working item will maybe expire more or less in 3 or 4 years. So we are not in a hurry, because we have to reach the consensus. But I think that it could quite important to maybe provide a technical specification to be acknowledged over the whole Europe, not only within the borders of the European Union. And of course we did work quite hard in order to prepare an internal position paper on the last year, because we had to maybe recognize, to acknowledge the national differences, and of course to maybe devise a sort of non-prescriptive general framework. But of course we did start from different sources, including the German VDI guidelines. And nowadays we are establishing the main contents of the document, from the introduction, of course, throughout the framework standards, existing competence initiative, etc. And of course we could include within the document some maybe high-level implementation guidelines, and within the national annexes we are foreseeing to, of course, maybe introduce some conversion tables dealing with the titles, roles, jobs and functions, because we have to avoid to mention them within the document. But I think that we could also take into account the digital twins in the built environment, starting from, of course, the general standard recently issued about the digital twins, about the concept and terminology. And of course, we are starting under the convenership of Edward to maybe write and perform a similar document addressed towards our own topic, the digital twins concept and definitions. But I will leave the floor to Edward in order to explain the additional item. But I also to highlight that some days ago, as Aitor was highlighting to me as well as to Edward, the recent new directive dealing with the energy efficiency of the buildings is mentioning the smart readiness indicator for buildings to be sided to the digital building twin. So I think that it's a great maybe achievement. Some months ago we did discuss the topic together with Brigitte Jacquemont, who is in charge within the European Commission of the SRI. But so we are not successful, but it does depend on us. But I think that we have to be happy, of course. But the maybe original and initial maybe triggering point has been the Italian national standard 11337 Part 7, issued 6 years ago, and we are starting a systematic revision and a review of the standard. But it's a national standard, maybe depending on a national law enforced 11 years ago, and it does deal with the non-knowledge and non-chartered practitioners. And obviously the Italian standard is mentioning the BIM titles, BIM jobs, and BIM roles, from the BIM specialist to maybe on the near future the GeoBIM specialist. But from the European point of view, we maybe from the early beginnings of our own work, we did decide to discard such an approach because we are not able to reach the famous consensus, because there are different attitudes, different cultures, different certification schemes. For instance, the German ones managed by Markus König, more or less, but there are a lot. And of course, there is also the Buildesmart International related qualification and certification schemes. And so we did start in maybe taking into account different maybe aspects: education, training, qualification, but not certification. And for instance, it's maybe an approach hugely shared by our Finnish colleagues and some that are rightly quite sensitive to the maybe educational items. So we are not specifying any professional title or role or job at the European level. We could reach the consensus and on a higher level. And we might, of course, we could also try, it depends on different maybe causes and factors, but to define some competence dealing with the digital twin management. But I have to say that the BSI, the British transposition of the ISO standard I was mentioning earlier on, is discarding the acronym DT, because DT does mean, from the UK point of view, digital transformation, as well as they are refusing to use LOIN as an acronym. And they are using DTW. So we could maybe adopt the DTW management. And so, but I think that if we are looking at the ISO standard issue on the last year, the definitions are quite interesting, and of course we could reason in the near future, I suppose, about it. Of course, maybe the definition of the DTW is including the convergence between the physical, of course, and digital states at an appropriate rate of synchronization. But also it does define the digital entity as a computational entity comprising also procedural elements. And of course, the modeling has been defined maybe when mentioning the symbolic paradigms and formal languages, and the information models are models of a set of facts, concepts, or instruction to meet a specific requirement. And of course, I think that on the next June, under the convenership of NCAMP, we will start to the systematic review of the ISO standards 19650. So I think that we could also rethink the definition of building information model in front of different definitions of information model. But the standard also maybe refers to semantics, semiotics, and of course ontologies. And this morning we did discuss the issue, and I think that BDTA will maybe represent a reference about the ontologies dealing with the digital building twins. So, but it's clear that if we are maybe again coming back to the standard, there are some meaningful and relevant words, and above all, I think that the most maybe overarching one is prediction, of course. So it does mean, from my point of view, that we have to maybe side and couple geospatial modeling, and for instance, we are usually working about it within our CISR project check, together with Accord and DigiChecks, and of course we did discuss the topic this morning too. And so geospatial modeling, building information modeling, digital twinning, and I think the large language modeling, or the large language models, including of course RAG, because it's clear that RAG could be the maybe crucial triggering agent as far as the larger language models are concerned. So we have to avoid any title within SEN, but I think that here we could start to reason about the title or DT or DTW manager. To be conceived maybe is of course a question not to be answered nowadays, but as a prompt designer and a prompt engineer, I don't know. But it's clear that the main topics to be considered could be listed as follows: on real-time and on remote decision-making process, modifying the behavior of the target entity, causal explanations and algorithmic decision-making process, and overall have to be included or have to be take into account the human-in-the-loop criterion, or we could at least maybe consider the human not in but on the loop criterion, also because the algorithmic decision is quite sensitive. So thank you for your attention.